All right, are we ready to get started? I'll keep going then. Next, we're going to go chapter 5. Now, we're going to do, what am I going to do first? I want to do the APR now. What's the difference, by the way, between APY and APR? Y is what, R is what? And what is it for? R is for loans, borrowing, credit. Y is for investing. Yield means this is how much profit you made. R is a rate, that's how much you're going to pay. So that's the difference. The calculation on R is not that easy also. We're going to this document right here. I posted this, I think. Is this the example I want to use or the one in the book? You know what? I'm going to start with the one on the book. I'm going to page 162. This example will kind of, and then we'll see if we need this other one. Okay, it's a little tricky. These variables, I'm going to identify them and make corrections over here if these don't make sense to you, because this is the key for you to be able to do this easily. The formula's up there. It says the APR, the numerator has 2 times n. 2 is a 2, no matter what. And here's the tricky part. That small n, the numerator, is the number of payments in 1 year. So you look at the loan. This loan could be a 3-year loan, 6-year loan, car loan, let's say. But how many payments are made in 1 year? If you're making payments monthly, that top n, that small n, would be 12. But there's loans out there where you pay it one payment at the end of 1 year. That top number would be a 1. And then what is that? I is your total dollar cost of credit. Is that an I or an L? Is that a capital I or a small L? The top right-hand variable. Whatever it is, it's the amount of interest you're going to pay on the loan total for the whole life of the loan, plus any fees that were involved in getting the loan. That's your cost of the loan. That's your top number. 2 times number of payments 1 year and your total cost for all the fees and interest. In the denominator. P is the amount you're borrowing without interest. The amount you're borrowing is the principal, it's called. Then parentheses, a big N, the large N, capital N, is the total number of payments on the whole loan. So it's a 3-year loan, that's 36. 4-year loan, 48. 5-year loan, 60. 30-year loan, whatever that is, 360. And then take that and add 1 to it. So however many payments in the whole life of the loan, add 1, then multiply it times the amount borrowed. There's your denominator. That's how it's calculated. Now, here's why it's important. Here's the difference. This is a great example in real life, and this is how it was before the government said, you have to advertise your APR, you have to advertise your APY, so people don't have to be tricked, so they can compare apples to apples. So then everybody advertising, all banks that were advertising loans had to start putting the APRs on there so people wouldn't get tricked. They look at one loan, in this example it says 10%, I think, here it is. It says we're going to borrow $100 and we're going to pay 10%. The first example, we're going to pay the whole $100 back at the end of the year, plus the $10 fee, or the $10 interest. The second example, we're going to make monthly payments over a year to pay it all back. And they're going to be equal payments, just like a car loan or a house loan. But this one's only a year. In the top one, it's 2 times the number of payments in 1 year, which is a 1, because we're going to pay it all off in 1. And the interest on this is $10. The interest on even loans, $10. They're both the same. But you got to realize something. The bottom, the denominator, $100 is the amount being borrowed. The total payment, since we're paying it all off in one lump sum at the end of the year, is just 1. Add 1 to it. So 2 times 100 is 200. At the top, 2 times 1 times 10 is 20. 20 divided by 200 is exactly 10%. The rate of interest we're being charged, 10%, is also the APR because we had use of those $100 for the whole year and didn't have to pay it back till the end of the time. And that's why it's a true 10% loan. Now, here's what most people end up doing. paying equal installments in monthly payments over the year. So now you take 2 times the number of payments in 1 year, 12, times the fee, same $10, we're not paying any more, we're just making payments over the year. Divided by the $100, but instead of 12 payments total, I'm sorry, it's still 12 payments total instead of 1 payment because we're paying it off in 1 year, but monthly. 12 plus 1 makes 13, times $100 is how much we're borrowing. That's $1,300 now. At the top, 2 times 12 is 24, times $10 is $240. This loan, even though it's a 10% loan, because we pay some of it back along the way and don't have use of the money the whole year, it's really like having an 18.46% loan. Even though they're both, before this law passed, they both would have advertised 10% loan, only a $10 on $100 borrow, and they're both correct. But the way they're having it paid back, because you don't have use of the $100 the whole year, you're paying some of it back along the way, you're actually paying more than 10%. Because you didn't get to borrow the $100 for the whole year. At the end, you only have like, a little bit owed. So you're really paying 18.46. So if you're ever thinking about borrowing money, or you're ever looking at investments, always go to the APY or the APR, so you can compare apples to apples and not have to worry about how it has to be paid back, or how, if there's installments, has to be invested. You don't have to worry about the APY and the APR. Will do all that for you, so you can compare apples to apples and make fair decisions. This APR, is going to be on your final from this chapter. It's like it's the most important kind of calculation. You hate this. You can tell. Huh?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. Next on our list, are we up here? Is it closed-end credit? No, I'm jumping to one more, the second hardest thing from this chapter. We're getting this out of the way. Home equity loan. Bottom of page 149. Home equity loan. Most of you will maybe take out a home equity loan in your life. It's very common. A lot of people do it. They buy a house and they get a loan, but then they've been paying on this loan on their house. Let's say 10 years go by. Their house increased in value, the amount they owe on the loan is decreased, and in the middle is equity. And a lot of people will go, wow, before this year, you could write off the interest paid on a home equity loan. So if there's a home equity loan for 4% and a car loan for 3.5%, a home equity loan at 4%, being able to write the interest off on your itemized taxes ended up being really a lot less than 4%, so it was a better deal. But now you can only write off the home equity loan interest if you spent the money and could prove it, if you're audited, on the house you live in. If you don't spend it on the house you live in, like buy a car, you can't deduct the interest on your taxes anymore. And you have to have a lot of itemized to get past that standard deduction. So, there's a lot of other reasons people take out home equity loans. But here's the deal. You need to know how. This is how banks and credit unions all do this. They'll say, you'll see when you go to home equity loans, 80%, 75%, some have 90, some go all the way down to like 65%. And those percentages are the percent of the home value they're willing to loan up to over and above the current loan you have. I'm going to say that again. When you see the rates, and if it's a 65% home equity loan, it will be a lower rate. They're saying, whoa, we'll give you a nice low rate if you're only going up to 65% of the equity in your home. If you go all the way to an 80%, it's a slightly higher rate because you're taking your loan all the way up to 80% of your home. And here's how they do it. They say, we're going to have an appraisal done, and what's nice about the appraisal is it's not like a regular mortgage. They pay for the appraisal. You hear that? This is why sometimes I needed to borrow money for just a little short time on one of my rental homes, and I didn't owe anything on it. And I went to go get a mortgage, and I said, well, no, I don't want a mortgage. I want a home equity loan. And because I knew it would only be for a very short period of time, and I got to avoid all the fees. No appraisal fee, no closing costs. And a home equity loan is a lot different than a regular mortgage. You don't have to have a mortgage on a house to get a home equity loan. You can just choose a home equity loan. It was about 1% more, and if I was gonna hold it for a long time, I would have paid all the fees probably. Since I knew I only needed it for a couple of months to take advantage of something, I knew just to go ahead and get a home equity loan. The deal is though, a lot of them have the fine print that you have to hang on to the home equity loan a certain period of time before you pay it off, so they can try to get back the money they spent on the fees. Because they're the ones paying for the appraisal and everything. But let's say you've owned a home for 5, 10 years, and you happen to have bought your home after we get done with the home chapter in a really good area that's appreciating the value. So you may have bought the home for $120,000, but maybe it's worth $150,000 now. You've only owned it a few years. You borrowed, what did I say you bought the home for? $120,000? $120,000. So you borrowed about $100,000, let's say, or $99,000, whatever. But you've been making payments, monthly payments for 5 years while the home's been increasing in value. So now you only owe, by the way, at the beginning of a home loan, most of your payments going to interest. Only the small portion is going to principal. So at the beginning, your balance on the home loan doesn't go down that much in the first 5 years. I'm going to take it to $97,000 now. Is all you owe it. All right, you ready? You're looking at a home equity loan on the credit union webpage, and you're looking in the column 80%. What that means is, whatever the appraisal comes in for the house, and let's say it comes in at 150, you multiply times the 80%, and that's the most the credit union is going to let you borrow, over and on top of what your current amount is. So you ready? 80% of this, 30,000, that's 120,000. Here's how I do these things. 10% is 15,000, so 20% would be double that 30, subtract 30 from that, 120. There's no trick to this. I just want to make sure you guys know. This is the most you can borrow up to, because you're looking at an 80% equity loan, but you still owe 97. This is the order. This is where everybody gets this wrong. This will be on your final. You don't subtract these. You take the amount the house is worth and first multiply it times the percentage. The question may say you're going after a 75%, you're going after a 70%, or an 80 or an 85%. 80%, you find out what the 80% of that value is. Now you subtract what is still owed on the loan. The difference, which is obviously $23,000, is the most the credit union will lend you, because when you add them, that takes you to the 80%. The amount you currently owe, the difference between 80% of the value of the home. That's the amount they're willing to loan you up to at the rate you see on their page at the 8% equity, home equity loan, or line of credit. Right? And that is demonstrated at the bottom of this page right here. This home is now $100,000. This person's going after a 75% home equity loan. So they multiply that times 70, it's 75,000, but they still owe 50,000. Subtract that. This is the amount that's available to borrow from the home equity loan they're applying for, and they're going after the 75% one, which will be a little lower rate than the 80%. All right? A big guy? Question is going to say, how much can this person borrow in these circumstances? A house appraised for 150, they owe 97. They're going after an 80% loan. What's the most they could borrow? And there's the calculation, 23,000 or 25,000. Here's another example. And there's another one on your homework. All right, those are the two best parts of today's lecture. Closed-end credit. We're going to slide 7. I'm going to talk about closed-end and open-end at the same time. Okay? Closed-end is where you borrow the money, you sign on the dotted line, you get the loan, you buy whatever it is you were going to buy with the loan, and it's done and you make payments. You can't go back and say, hey, I want to increase that by 500, or, you can't change the loan. You can refinance, but you'd have to get a whole new loan to pay that loan off. A car loan, a house loan, that's how those loans are. They're called closed-end because once you sign and the loan deal's done, it's in stone. You just can't add more to it. Open-end is where you can add more to it. Like a credit card. When you go and charge something for a couple $100, that's a couple hundred loan, and you could tomorrow go and charge something for another couple hundred, Now you just increase the amount you borrow. That's open-end. And some people take these home equity loans out. Instead of it being a regular loan, they'll do what's called line of credit. Home equity line of credit, which makes it open-end. And they'll say, okay, you've been approved now for $23,000 line of credit. And you're given like a checkbook. And right now, you're getting charged 0 interest because you haven't borrowed a penny. And if you need any part of that, write the check to yourself and transfer it, or go on your app and transfer it, or just write the check to whoever it is you're buying with the loan. And if you only use $5,000 of it, you pay back payments on the $5,000 plus interest. If you decide to use $10,000, that's fine. And if you use $5,000, then another $5,000, that's fine, as long as you don't go over the 23 and you're making payments on schedule. That's open-end. The home equity line of credit, that one's called. And credit cards and things like that. If you can keep borrowing more on it, it's open-end. If you can't borrow any more on it, it's closed. It's like a home loan and car loan, where you'd have to refinance to replace it. So there's those definitions. Debt payments to income. This is a big deal. This was from chapter 2, but when it comes to borrowing, the debt to equity and the debt payments to income ratio are the two most important ratios that will be calculated. I audited a whole bunch of loan departments, and they always have these calculations in the approval stats, where they're trying to decide whether to approve or not, all the different things. Debt to equity and debt payments to income ratio. So I'm going to slide 13. Whoop. Here's the first one. Debt payments to income ratio. In chapter 2, I really emphasize the 20% rule. I hope you kind of remember it. The golden rule is 20%. And what it says is, not including your house, not the house payment, or that's considered a long-term liability, but your other monthly debt payments, any credit cards, your student loan, your car payment, any other loans that you make monthly payments on are all added together. And then it's divided by your net monthly income. This is after taxes are withheld. It's the amount that your check gets transferred into your bank account. After withhold taxes, after they take out Social Security, the net income. And when you divide those, and it's near 20% or over 20%, you have too much in payments and not enough income. And you're going to head towards trouble. That's the golden rule about 20%. And if you say, hey, I've got all these monthly payments, and here's my net income, but I'm thinking about buying this, and I'm going to have to put it on the credit card, and it will be this much monthly payment, do this calculation before you go and buy that thing, and pretend as if you have this monthly payment, and see if it takes you over the 20%. And if it does, you should not buy it. That's it. That's really, this is how maybe to keep a cap on yourself. If it goes over that 20%, that's not something you should be buying. You should get rid of one of the other payments then before you buy it. To keep yourself under that 20%. Because another 25 to 30% is going to your housing. And another 25 to 30% is going to the food. So you're not going to leave yourself with anything if you go over the 20% on debt payments. I'm going to look at something here. Page 152, I think has a good example. Here we go. Up here it says the monthly gross income, but we don't use gross, we use net. So it says taxes taken out of the check, Social Security, the 401k or IRA, whatever the retirement's coming out of your check. The take-home pay net is $1,250. Here's the monthly bills for this person. A Visa 25, a MasterCard 35, a Discover card 15. 0 for education loan. I don't know how that happened. Personal bank loan, auto loan 175. They add up to 250. 250 divided by 1,250 is exactly 20%. So they should not put anything else on a credit card. They shouldn't take out any kind of loan until one of these other loan payments disappear. That's the max you should ever go to. You should try to be as far under 20% as you can, actually. Anyway, so there's a perfect example. 20% is such a golden rule. We really hit on it on chapter 2, but here it is again. Now here's the other one. This is a big deal when you're applying for a home loan. They'll take all, they're going to add up all of your liabilities except a home. Very similar, but not your monthly payment. how much you owe on that Visa. What's your balance? 2,000 something. Okay, here's a Discover card, another 3,000. Here's your student loan, 10,000. You know, here's your car, blanky blank. It's all your liabilities except what's owed on the home, divided by your net worth except the home. Not the equity in your home. It's your net worth, all your assets minus your liabilities to get that net worth when the home's not your assets and what's owed on the home is not your liability. Then it's all the liabilities except for what's owed on the home divided by that net worth. Now, this says should be less than 1.0. And if you want to get the best rate at wherever you're applying for a mortgage, this should be at 0.3 or less. 0.5 is even too high. I mean, you're not going to go into bankruptcy or anything. When you get up close to 1, you're heading towards where your liabilities are so big, more than your net worth, that you're probably heading towards bankruptcy. You're never going to be able to catch up. But for that home credit union or bank to want to give you the, you know, when you see advertised mortgage rates at a credit union or bank, a lot of them will just give you one rate and some will give you different rates. But really, in reality, if you don't have A1 credit, you don't meet to get that rate, that doesn't mean you're not going to get the loan. They're going to come back and say, this was not at 0.3. Your debt to income ratio, your debt payments to income ratio was not at, you know, they may want it at 0.15 instead of 0.2, not 20% but 15. It was above 15%. You're still, it's a little more risk to give you this loan. We can only do it if you're willing to pay, it'll be like an extra half or 1% above the rate you could have got. And almost every place does this. They call it A rate, B rate, C rate. And you'll get a B or a C. And then if you can't get a C, you got to go to, I can't think of the government webpage, but where they have all these kind of different rules. Dang, it slipped my mind what the government webpage is. It's a blank loan. I can't think of it right now, I'll find it though. And they publish on their webpage, this is a government page, that says, okay, you have to have at least a 460 credit score. That's another reason why a bank or credit union will say you can't give you the best rate, because the credit score, the debt to payment ratio, or the debt equity ratio. And then if you go to the government's webpage, it will give you the minimum you have to have, or like a 460. There's no place that will lend you a home loan at 460 but the government. Not HUD. God, it only came to me. FHA. Thank you. FHA. Federal Housing Authority. You go there, you can see the absolute minimum to get a loan through them. But what happens is most people get a loan through them have to pay a fee, extra fee, and they got to pay a little higher what's called mortgage insurance possibly. There might be a way to not have to pay the mortgage insurance. I heard this recently, they may have dropped. Huh?
At least 20% off.
That normally, in any home loan, when we get to the home checker, you have to put 20% down to avoid the mortgage insurance. But with FHA, I don't even, it's possible in the old days, you couldn't even avoid the mortgage insurance at 20% down because you were such a risk with such a low credit score stuff. But it's possible they may have changed it. Matter of fact, I think I've heard where you don't have to pay the mortgage insurance even without 20% down if you go FHA. So I don't know for sure. But the bottom line is, even if you think you can't get a home loan, you possibly still could. It may not be at the best rate, but you possibly still could get one. And there's huge advantages to having a home loan over renting. Not as much as there used to be because of the change in the taxes, but there's huge advantages. And I'm going to show you some in the next chapter. But this is one of those ratios. Next. Let's see, what is next? Credit warning signs. I want to talk about credit bureaus. I want you to write this webpage address down. It's www.annualcreditreport.com. You remember late night ads, get a free credit report, get a free credit report? All these different credit report web pages doing those late night ads. This is the only official one that sponsored by the federal government. This is the true website that is official where you're supposed to go and get your one annual credit report. But you can get a free credit report, one a year, from each of these. So you could get one from here. You do this page and they'll say, which one do you want? You say Experian. And then wait a couple months and maybe you found something and you follow the process. It will tell you how to make You know, if you want to debate something that's on there, you write a letter, this is not correct, and so on. You wait a couple months, you want to see if it's been corrected, you get a free report from here. Because you can only get one free report per year per agency. So you don't have to wait a whole year to get another report. You can go here and get one. And then it didn't get fixed yet. You wait another few months, now you'll get one from them. But 12 months go by, you can go back and get one here. So you can actually get 3 a year. One from each one if you want to. And the only, I heard, and I don't know for sure, but I heard they're not putting the score on anymore when you ask for this free report. You have to do something else. If you apply for a loan though, and you get declined, you also get a free report no matter what the situation is. If you go here and apply for it, say I got declined on a loan. And I believe whoever declined on the loan has to give you the scores. So that'd be a way you would get the scores. If anybody decides to do this, since it costs you absolutely nothing, please let me know if you get the scores with it too. And it's good to read it, especially if you think you have no credit. Why not try to get one of these and see if that's true? So there's the credit report. We talked about in the last lecture all the things that affect your credit, and I gave you some really good advice how to possibly get your score up. I repeated that a few times. All right. Last thing, we have an in-class assignment. How are we doing on time? Perfect. We're going to slide 32. All right. You can see it. So here's some of the warning signs that will let you know you may have too many things on credit. And paying only the minimum balance each month and not putting extra on it to try to get rid of that debt, that's kind of a warning sign because you feel that's all you can afford or something. Trouble even paying the minimum balance is a warning sign. Total balance increases every month, missing loan payments or paying late, using savings to pay for necessities such as food. You don't have enough in your net pay to pay for food that now you've got to reach into your savings because you've got to make payments on the different credit cards you're using. That's a warning sign for sure. You should be able to live off your net pay and constantly be adding to your savings is your goal. And that if you can't constantly add to your savings every month, then you're living beyond your means. That's the whole point. It's how much can you live under your means, or at least for sure live under your means at least a little. That's how you at least get some peace of mind. Let's see. Borrow money and payroll debts exceed credit limits. Yeah, be careful. You don't want to exceed the credit limits. A lot of credit cards will charge a fee if you accidentally go over the credit limit. And they won't deny it. You'll still get the credit, but all of a sudden you got this fee because you went over your limit, then anything after that's denied. Usually. Different credit cards do it a different way. Denied credit due to bad credit report, yeah, that's a bad warning sign too. If you ask some adults in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, did you ever have bad credit? A lot of them will say the only reason that gave a lot of people bad credit is when they've gone through a divorce. A divorce is like the #1 thing that tears people's credit apart because a war starts and people don't pay things because, no, that was yours, no, that was yours, and it ends up hurting your credit score a lot. If you ever get in that situation though, read the fine print at some of these credit bureaus because they have instructions how to fix it after a divorce. They have a little mercy on these divorce situations, and they'll tell you how to possibly fix it. And they'll post statements that this was caused by a divorce right on the credit report, because there are some places that you may be applying for a home loan that will take that into consideration if it's on the credit report. It says right there it was because of a divorce. Okay? Now, that's it. Warning signs. That's everything. 20% rule, home equity loan, the paper, the house assignment. You got homework that's due Wednesday in 2 days. It'll be posted tonight. I'll try to post it while you're working on the in-class maybe, if I can turn off the screen. And I can't. You ready?